So now, the moment you've all been waiting for, I get to introduce you to Hilary Watson and Keith Stewart. So they've been working, as most of you will probably know, on the 1970s Protest Photos New Zealand exhibition and the digitisation project. I was lucky enough to go to Te Auaha and see it in the flesh, and I really enjoyed it. And I really admire the way you've put this together collectively. So please welcome and come and let us know all about it.
Tēnā koutou katoa and manawatia a matariki from myself and Keith, and a special kia ora to one of our team. I think Cheryl Diamond's here. I don't know if anyone else in our protest photos team are here. I don't think so, but they all say hi. So Keith and I were both taking photos for Salient in the early 70s and have had other careers since. And in fact, we didn't really meet up again until we were part of this project that put together the Protest Photos exhibition, which, as mentioned, was at Te Auaha Gallery in Dixon Street in March. Hands up who did see that. Okay, most of you, great. So, and how many are on the mailing list? Oh, not so many. Okay, you can do that later. Get yourself on it. So as you know, the exhibition was the launch of a bigger project, a repository of 70s protest photos. And our website currently has both the exhibition and the start of the bigger collection on it. So if you didn't get to the exhibition, you can look at it online. And also on the website are the text and timelines that highlight the significant issues and changes that came about as a result of all that political action over the decade. So the exhibition is just a snapshot of the political issues of the 10 years of the 70s. Back then, I was active in tenants protection and other things, and Keith was a bit later a union delegate on the new BNZ site. Also, like many of you, we were turning up at every protest going, and there were many at that time on a raft of issues. So we had a lot of photos to choose from for the exhibition, and but in order to cover all the main issues, we were lucky also to have some of John Miller's and Trish Saar's as well. So anyway, today we decided to show you a few photos of mine and Keith's that were not in the exhibition. There are some protest marches and other pictures from behind the scenes, meetings, conferences and pickets. So let's just have a look at them and we'll speak a little bit to them as we go.
Yeah, I mean, that's a photo that just shows the breadth of, I suppose, of protest movements in the 1970s.
Get by the mic, yeah.
Have to be by the mic.
Yes.
This photo shows, I suppose, some of the breadths of the types of protests that were involved in the 1970s. And this was a demonstration. People were walking to Oriental Parade to protest outside the Malaysian High Commission, because a lot of Malaysian students who were at Victoria University at the time were being spied on. And when they went back to Malaysia, they were they ended up being in big trouble because they might have been criticising the Malaysian government at the time there. And I'm sure you can see some of the people there who are well known to people who were hanging around Victoria University in the 1970s. This was another photograph. For those of you around in university in those days, you didn't have to you had to get terms, but as long as you passed your final examination, then you were quids in. I managed to pass my final examinations, but that was by chance, I think, rather than doing a lot of hard work during the year. And as a result of that, it was very active in the Union Hall. There were a lot of people speaking, there were a lot of activities. And this was a photograph of the person on the left there, whose name escapes me at the moment, But this was a meeting about the Vietnam War. And he was French, and he had been arrested by the government in Vietnam and put in prison, and then got out of prison, gone to France. And he was coming over to New Zealand to speak about the anti-Vietnam War protests. And this is a picture of him having quite a heated discussion with some Vietnamese students who were here, courtesy of the Vietnamese government at the time. So they were taking issue with what he was saying. And it was all in French, which was quite interesting at the time. That's one of yours.
That's pretty self-explanatory. An anti-apartheid meeting in the Union Hall. And there's a wider view of it. Your Jack Press is in the chair. Yeah.
Yeah. I spent a lot of time in the Union Hall taking photographs. And we all spent a lot of time in the Union Hall. It was just a great time to be at university in those days. There was so much happening, so much social activity. Political activity, bands, and I've got heaps of photographs of bands playing in the Union Hall. This is a protest, anti-apartheid protest at Parliament, and it raised, now we had a lot of photographs of people getting arrested, and the committee had quite a big discussion about, are these the type of photographs we should be putting in public and having in a public exhibition? I suppose I don't know whether it's a current sensitivity about those topics, but if you were that person who was being arrested, would you want that photo posted publicly? And it was a debate that we went to and fro in the committee around, and it's probably something to do with our age, but we took the easy way out and said no. And so we didn't show them. But it does raise a moot point, I suppose, these days, of publishing historical photographs of people who are probably still alive, where they may have been involved in some criminal activity, or they may have been, to me, it's quite a dramatic photo. It shows the situation as it was. A lot of people got arrested during a lot of protests, and you're balancing that against, I presume, I would say, the privacy of the person who's been subject to quite a violent arrest there, as I remember. So that's not looking for an answer. It's just a thing that we grappled with at the time. We did a lot of protests in those days. This is another photograph of picketing. This is a picketing of the South African consulate, and so they would have regularly dinners and balls and stuff like that at night, and so we would picket it to try and embarrass people who were attending them. And this was part of the anti-apartheid movement. And this is we have got a lot of photographs of a lot of people attending those South African consulate. And this is just one from it. That's just to give you another issue. So that was about Chile. Remember at the time, the government in Chile, Allende was overthrown. And this was a protest at Parliament. There was just another one about the breadth of issues that were, to me, it was in quite a small time. I was taking photographs. I went to varsity in 1970, if you remember Therese, taking photographs, joined the PYM. And my last year at varsity was 1974. And then I went to work on Bank of New Zealand building site, where I was there for about 10 years. And became the Labour's union delegate there. And so my photographs spanned those 1970 to 75 years of the 1970s. There were a few more, I suppose, around the union stuff, but that was it. This,
One of the many witty banners from.
yes, one thing about the banners, handwritten banners, there were a lot of witty people. There still are a lot of witty people, but I mean, there. This is one of a series that was one of these was in the exhibition. There was a photograph of Muldoon glowering at the person holding that sign there. And this was another one of picketing and embarrassing people who were attending. If I recall, I'm trying to recall what the situation, what it was.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Yep. Of course, abortion was a big issue about that time, and that was just a walk in Wellington. People protesting, people getting out on the street, and this was when Wall was trying to bring the MP for Porora was trying to bring a bill in around abortion. This was when there was an abortion clinic, and there was a clinic in Auckland who was providing abortion services, and the government of the day, which was Labor government, was, I won't say active, but there were activities being undertaken to try and shut it down, and so there were quite a few demonstrations in support of the clinic. It's just another picture of people who attended that one there. It's interesting, when we had a lot of school kids visit the exhibition, they were very interested, less in the political stuff and more about the fashions. So we tried to steer them into the political stuff, but the fashions got them really big. Tenancy issues, sad to say, were have still continued over the last 50 years. Did I say 50 years?
Yeah.
50 years, 50.
And that's Roger Steele. For those who don't recognise them, that's Roger Steele on the left, leading this charge down the street towards probably a picket of a real estate agent. Yeah, so he's the publisher of one of the books that won.
This was a picture of a residence out the back of Willis Street, just before heading up Willis Street, just before you turn right into Aroa Street. There used to be a greengrocer there, and behind that was a flat. And this was a family who lived at the back of the flat. That was you could see the toilet there. That was their toilet. The young children were covered in impetigo sores, and their washing facilities were a couple of old concrete tubs out the back. And we're taking these as part of the Tenants Protection Association campaign. Yeah, I think you'll see Amanda Russell there on the hut over on the left there from Tenants Protection. But like the issue with the guy getting arrested, it brings up the issue of how much do you show of people's personal stuff. At the time, the family were quite happy for us to show their living conditions. And if I recall at the time on Salient, we blocked out the children's faces at the time. But it does raise the issue now, 50 years later, you know, what's the kaupapa around actually showing this stuff of those people, those young children there would be in their late 50s, I suppose, by now, around it. No answer, just it's a thing that I think we're grappling with. Yeah, that was another tenancy issue. In fact, if I remember, I think that's Amanda Russell's mother there in the centre. Anyone?
And her sister holding the banner.
And her sister holding the banner.
Yeah.
Of course, all these were taken during Norm Kirk's Labor government. A lot of this, I got a sense of very much a pent up desire for something to happen. And then when the Labor government came in 72, it just could not meet the demand in a lot of the issues. This was the same issue. I think this was about tenancy. I think Amanda's mother was getting kicked out of her house. And they were selling the house. That's why. Another tenancy one, you'll recognise the person on the right here, Mr. Rob Campbell.
Oh, yeah.
Where? That's not me.
Cheryl's partially on the left.
Oh, Cheryl's over there. Yeah. Tony Robinson. And a passerby who's got a leaflet.
Yep. Yeah, that was a meeting of some of the tenants of Madav Rama, who was a huge land house owner. Whoops. Go back to it. Oops. Yeah. So it was organised by Tenants Protection Association. He had a string of houses throughout Wellington, the Hutt Valley, on Thursday evening, payday. He and his son would go visiting every single house and collecting the rent. And one Thursday, they got to each house and the people said, we're not paying, we're on strike. And there were Tenants Protection members in each house. And it was a very long, drawn out action. There were lots of meetings like this. Lots of involvement, help, support from councillors and MPs as well, and their furniture was seized as part of what happened and then seized back by people in Stewart. So yeah, he lost in court, but it was very hard on the tenants, but it was an example of an amazing action. And that's a meeting of council tenants. I can't remember exactly the issue. There you are. And that one's a picket.
That one's another TPA. So there was quite a crossover. There was a lot of, I suppose, Tenants Protection Association were really focused on tenancy issues, but a lot of to quote the muscle, came from university students who were involved in supporting tenants' rights. And this was a picket of, I suppose, what now you'd call the Housing Corporation or Kangaroa around tenancy stuff. Yeah.
That's Dennis O'Reilly there.
It's Dennis O'Reilly there.
Getting on to the union section now.
Yeah, it's just these were just photographs of a union demonstration. I think, if I remember clearly, Wellington, everyone's in a raincoat. It was, I think it was a general thing to do with wage increases. It was a big march. It was a large march of primarily union members. This was those who went to the exhibition will have seen a photograph I took of dental nurses walking down Lambton Quay to Parliament. And when they got to Parliament, they weren't allowed in. They tried to circumvent that by saying they wanted to see their individual MPs. And how dare you stop me seeing my MP? But at the beginning, they all pressed up against the the doors to get in. And these are just a series of a number of photographs of the police and the what would be now Parliament security, but then we're retired people in uniforms who were having a conversation about you can't come in here. Of course, I've got a picture later on where they're all in there, so it wasn't much good.
That was, yeah. Just in the education area, teachers and teachers college students, and there's Benson Pope in the middle. And
yeah, just one thing, as I said to you, I went to work on the Bank of New Zealand building site. I actually went there as a holiday job in 1973. Then I went back to varsity and I went there as for a holiday job again in 74, end of 74, 75. And I'd signed up for another year at university and I thought, fuck it. I can't do another year at university. So I stayed on the building site. And I suppose why we've thrown these photos in, we had some pictures in the exhibition of graffiti on the, if you remember, of graffiti on some of the big steel beams that were about the Boilermakers strike. Now I was a labourers union delegate on the job, and so we were on strike for actually about 5 months to get parity with the Boilermakers, who were on substantially more wages than the carpenters and the labourers. So it was very much a strike about parity. The Boilermakers issues on the site were very much around, they'd been deregistered, and how the building was still going to get built using a deregistered union when the government was saying you can't have any talk with a deregistered union, and how they had to negotiate their way around that. Our issue was around in terms of the employer at the time, because the company who were building the site, which was an Australian company, they pulled out in the late 1970s, and the bank created a company that then employed everyone. Anyway, so there's quite a lot of I suppose a lot of labour history and working people history on that job. I was just saying before to Hilary, you know, I kept a diary of those days, and they were very good at the beginning of the year, and they drifted off as the year went. But it's interesting to look back at them over those times where there was we had a lot of union involvement in those days. And as we know, in terms of the construction these days, union involvement is extremely minimal. But in those days, it was very strong. I've just thrown up, that was because in those days, whoops, sorry, moved on. Sorry, Hilary's telling me to hurry up very subtly. Very subtly, because I'll ramble. This is, to me, this is a good example of, you've got to take pictures when you need to take pictures. You know, so this is a picture of the delegates team negotiating. No, this is a delegates team negotiating with the BNZ. Over in the corner is Jim Knox, Bert Parker over there. Hard left, you can just see him as Joe Ricketts. Mr. Anton is, the Labourers Union is there. And those other people, other guys no, Ashley wasn't there. Don't think so. Oh, actually, might have been. And these are the delegates from the site. So, and Jim Knox is actually on the phone with one of the head honchos of the Bank of New Zealand, who we were negotiating with. So it's a real, you know, negotiations are happening. We're all on strike at this moment around it. So I thought it was quite a historical photo. actually getting Jim Knox in action. Jim didn't used to want to be involved in the detail stuff too much. Anyways, I've got heaps of stories around that. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's my mantra that the photo you need is the photo you need to take today, because you think these days with cell phones, and I mean I just grabbed 3 photos before, but cell phones there would be a lot of photos, but I think they're mainly photos of cats.
And also they're not. They're not being printed. You can't hold on to them.
Yeah, but they're not photos of cats. They're not photos of cats. They're videos for TikTok and stuff like that. So it is important to record things as they happen, even for people in the future. And you don't print them. No, you don't. Yeah.
This is the hikoi approaching Ngāti Toa Marae and Porirua. And there it is, there's everyone waiting for them to come. Oh, sorry. Ngāti Toa Marae and Porirua, the people waiting for the hikoi to arrive. Yeah.
Hilary always took great photographs of children.
Oh, yeah.
Ted Nia, sadly no longer with us. And Te Ata Witahira. So both from Ngā Tamatoa. And this was a picture of them outside the Magistrates Court in Wellington as they were there. If you remember, Ngā Tamatoa would attend court to support young Polynesians who were up into the court system.
Just some notable famous people in there, or one. Bill Such and Rona Bailey and Peter Wilson, Terry Auld and Ron Smith. Just a little snapshot of them. Heroes. Yep. And this is on Vietnam area issue category. There's Christine Gillespie welcoming a delegation from Vietnam, and that's Frida Cook, I think, another one of our heroes. And this last little series is a cheerful, happy series, which was when women and children circled the Defence Building in Wellington for peace. You might recognise some of them. The children are now in their 40s, approximately. Oh, that's it. Oh, yeah, that was meant to be the last one. I thought there were more of the children, but anyway, that's a lovely couple.
That last one was.
Oh yeah.
That last one is Roger Steele, of course, on the left, and 2 of our finest constables. And if I recall, it was a discussion about how long are you going to be here.
Yeah.
It is what it actually is. So we're all hanging around about Parliament, and they either shift's ending or something, but they just want to know how long you're going to be there.
So that was appropriately the last of the slides. So yeah, just one of the great things about the exhibition was that it got people remembering and discussing the issues and where we are now in the light of all that. So now we just thought, just to round off, we'll give you a few minutes to chat to the person sitting next to you or behind you, just get in little huddles about what memories and thoughts come to mind for you, thinking back to the protests in those days. You might remember a particular highlight, a particular one, a particular protest or a memory, what stands out for you? And if you were born after then, have you been involved in protests, or were you left at home while your parents went out protesting? So yeah, just a few minutes, just chat to your neighbour, and then we'll round off.
Then we'll finish it off.
Yeah. I've got a few things to say about our project. So talk for a few minutes. Okay, might stop you there, but you can carry on later. He said, "Tell you I was a school teacher once." And I've just spotted that Paul Tolich is here, so he's another one of our team on this project. So hi, Paul. Okay, so the reminiscing you've done this evening and looking back also happened at the exhibition, and we were so pleased with the attendance. It was a hugely popular among people of all ages, and many people saw themselves in the photos, but young people were fascinated. And so it wasn't just our generation that came. And so what's happening now is that it is going to be an official education resource with the Ministry of Education, because all this stuff's part of the history curriculum. And we want it to be shown in other centres. So we're offering it around to other places in New Zealand. We would make it available for no charge, apart from transportation. But we would probably need a group in the destination town to help gather around it and publicise it and drive it, depending on this host gallery. So if you know of possible galleries around New Zealand that might be interested, or people who might lead something like that, let us know. And there's going to be a book of the exhibition. Roger Steele of Steele Roberts is getting onto that. And also, we always say in our newsletters, if you have photos from the 70s, get in touch. Ideally, we want them to be identified by place, date, and event. But basically, it would be great if they're found and saved before we depart this life. And do put yourself on the mailing list. And for those who've supported us so far, thank you very much. Oh, and we've got the timelines that go with the exhibition. If you do want a copy, we've got a few here.
So that's a wrap. That was absolutely fabulous. Thank you so much. And I'm so glad that it's an ongoing project and that you are taking it around, hopefully having it go around the country as well. That's really fabulous. And you have a website as well, and people can have a look at the website and get in contact that way. Yeah, great. So I'd like to thank you both for this amazing presentation and sharing all your beautiful pictures with us. I don't know if you're a red or white drinker, so you can fight over these. There's one of each. And I also have a bottle of bubbly to thank the staff that stayed on tonight to work this, Mark and Joan, and I think there's another staff member and security guard here. So hopefully you can share a drink together in the future. So thank you very much to everyone, and I'd like to officially close the AGM. Yay!